Brace yourself. You're listening to E-Brace Radio.
We now welcome on a recurring guest back to the show, the big man on campus himself, Jeff Nadu. Jeff, how you doing, man?
Doing good, guys. How are you?
Hanging in there, dude. I'm excited. It's March Madness. I'm excited we're back.
Yeah, it's a great time of the year. I mean, we didn't have it last year. Obviously, all of us remember where we were 1 year ago today. We basically were, in a barren wasteland of nothing. We had no basketball. The NBA had canceled. Baseball was, I think, kind of something that we didn't think would happen again. And look where we are now. A year later, we had a full baseball season, albeit, kind of a limited one. We crowned a champion. We had the NBA finals. We had the NFL season. We had the college football season. All the champions are crowned, and we got through it. So, it's been a long year, but now we have one more big time event to get through, and then maybe, hopefully, we have a normal summer. At least
exactly. Yeah, maybe you can get some fans back in the seats. That would be nice. But first thing I want to start off with, where's the weight at, man? You look skinny as hell right now. You look good.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I don't know where weight goes, man. I guess it just disappears, right? I've said it before and I'll say it again, and one of the reasons I share it all the time is because it's probably the greatest thing that I've ever done. I think it's pretty incredible how if you work at something and you do something, you can change your predicament. And that's part of, the coronavirus year will always be important to me. And I know a lot of people lost a lot, and there are people that lost family and friends. I luckily didn't lose anyone, but I lost personally something that I wanted to do away with. And, I figured that I was going to do something, and I put my mind to it, and I did it. And I don't win every game. I'm not the best looking guy in the world. I don't have all the money in the world, but I wanted to do something. I did it myself, and I'm proud of that. So yeah, I got a little bit more work to do. The next goal is to create it and build it into something where it's, more solid, where I have, muscle, but I already have muscle developing, and, we'll get there. But yeah, I'm going to spend the summer just kind of weight training, and hopefully by fall, I look like, Ronnie from the Jersey Shore or something. I don't know, but yeah, we have some work to do. We'll get there, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
So do you know what your total weight loss is at right now?
Yeah, I'm like 108 pounds or so.
Jeez, man.
Yeah.
Congrats.
My goal was always get back to, the 225 area. I got a little bit more, but I'm almost there. So, I'm kind of in a mode now where, it's a lot harder to lose weight because I think my body just kind of, this is where it is. I don't think I'll ever get below like 220. But, I continue to do the same things I did, and I'm out there every day working out, and now it's just part of my life. It's like waking up and taking a shower and doing all that stuff. It's normal for me now. So I'm very happy. You really don't have anything if you don't have your health. And, I see friends and I see people that haven't taken care of themselves, whether it be through drinking or smoking or doing drugs or, eating poorly, and it catches up to them. And, I kind of want to nip it in the bud before, I got too old where, 40, 45, you don't have the same kind of gumption that you had when you were 30, 31. So, I feel a lot better too. My life's a lot better. And, I'm excited for once all this virus stuff is over so I can start going out and living again and living my life and, seeing what's next.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. So hopping into the tournament here, right off the bat, who's your favorite to win? Who is the big man on campus's favorite to win?
I mean, listen, I don't mean to be obtuse, or I don't mean to be vague either, but, I think it's hard to not think Gonzaga is going to win this tournament. But I will say, I actually have not picked my winner yet. I have the Final Four pretty much set. I'm almost there, but I think there's some intriguing parts of this bracket. I keep going back and forth, and I keep trying to figure things in. One thing I do know at this late hour is if the Gonzaga Bulldogs do not get to at least the Final Four, I don't know if they ever will. I don't know if they'll ever get to that elusive championship. It's been a long road for Mark Few. I don't think when he took that program over in the late '90s, I don't think he ever thought he'd be where he is today. But they had a real hand ride to the Final Four. I would be real surprised if Gonzaga doesn't win. I think they're light years better than everybody else. They've shown that all year. And when you look at their bracket, at least on their side,
It's pretty
the
weak.
top 3 seeds outside of Gonzaga, they've already beaten by double digits. So Virginia, Iowa, and Kansas, they've already taken care of. So that just goes to show you how good they are. I will say this, it's going to be an electric Final Four if we get kind of how we think it's going to shake out. I think they're probably the champion. I haven't decided fully yet.
So if we can't, squeeze the natty out of you, how about we start to get a little bit of bracketology
Well, it's not
here?
that I don't want to give it. I just, we have, obviously this year it's Friday is the start. So I'm still, here's what I'll do. I'll give you some of my Final Four. Like, I really believe Texas is really good. And I think Texas, Gonzaga in the Final Four would be an electric game. I think Purdue is really interesting, and I'll kind of get into the rest of teams, but I'll say Gonzaga is probably in the championship game.
Okay. So let's get into some bracketology here. Who are your top 3 overseeded teams? Are there teams you think that just got they got lucky in the seeding and they shouldn't be where they are?
Clemson should not be a 7 seed. That's really laughable. They really have limped into this tournament. This is a group that lost to Miami in the ACC tournament. I don't know how you can make a case that they're a 7 seed and Georgia Tech's a 9 seed. Georgia Tech is the winner of the ACC. How are they a 9 seed, Clemson a 7 seed? I think everyone would agree Clemson is sorely overpriced. For me, it's more or less just teams that I don't really think should be in this tournament that are. I think you can make a real case. If you can explain to me why Maryland's in this tournament, I'd probably like to hear it. I don't really think that they've done anything to warrant being in. I guess because they beat Illinois by 3 way back in January, I guess that constitutes it. But, I thought it was surprising that they were frankly in the tournament at 16 and 13. And I'll keep saying it. If you can show me outside of just because their name's Wisconsin and they're in the Big Ten, if you could show me one thing that Wisconsin did that you're impressed with, I guess really outside of one game, December 15th, tell me.
UNC has to love that draw, getting Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's a great draw. I'll ask you guys, what have they actually done to warrant being in this tournament? Because I'm not really sure I see it.
Because they haven't beat any of the big dogs in the Big Ten. They didn't beat Iowa. They didn't beat Michigan. They didn't beat Illinois.
Yeah.
Nobody's beating Illinois. They didn't do anything.
I know. No, that's my thing. And when you look at the Big Ten, they did not beat one quality opponent in that conference. Rutgers, I think that's the only tournament team they beat in the conference. And Rutgers is what are they, a 10 seed? So it's like, you didn't really beat anyone in the non-conference outside of Loyola. I guess they're giving the Louisville win a lot more credit. I don't know, but
Louisville's not even a tournament team.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of egregious decisions. I thought West Kentucky probably did enough to get into the field. I was a little surprised they didn't get in. I thought a win against Alabama, they beat La Tech, they beat some decent, mid-majors as well. I thought they might have did enough to get in the tournament, but I didn't think there were any real egregious issues with it.
So I have a question for you. Being that I'm in North Carolina, I get to see a lot of the mid-major schools in North Carolina play. Isaiah Miller out of UNC Greensboro. Is he the best athlete in the tournament, like they were saying on ESPN?
Is he the best athlete? Wow, that's a great question.
Because he was Defensive Player of the Year, I think 3 times in a row in the SoCon, and I think he's the leading scorer for UNCG. So he can produce on both ends of the floor. Granted, he's, I think, a junior or a senior.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think he is an elite athlete, and he's, if we get to the whole, where's an upset coming from, I'm definitely going to bring him up in that.
That's what I was going to say.
I don't know. I've got to kind of look, but I would say he is. He's as far as usage rate, he's heavily used by them. He's a terrific defender. I don't know if there's a player that means more to his team than him. So yeah, I would say he probably is. I'd have to kind of think about that for a little bit. You're putting him in the spot for sure, but yeah, I would say he is.
Yeah, it's interesting because North Carolina got 3 schools into the tournament, UNC and then UNC Greensboro and App, which at the beginning of the year, if you asked, App gets in over Duke
Yep.
or App gets in above, NC State or something, you probably go crazy. But granted, they're in the play-in game against Norfolk State, but still, they made it to the dance.
I mean, when you look at Miller, I mean, I don't know if there's a player more important to one team than him.
Mhm.
I mean, like his percentage of his shots, like he's top 6 in the country in that metric. He takes 35.4% of Greensboro shots. I mean, he really does everything. I mean, he's great. His assist rate is high. He rebounds the basketball. He's a great defender, as I said. I mean, he is he's a really interesting player. He's a little undersized, but I think he could really be a household name because I'm maybe jumping the shark a little bit. I actually think they can beat Florida State. I really do. And if you want, I can break down why I think that. But
well, I was going to ask you that because that was my pick for like the one upset that I could actually see because I believe Florida State's a 4 seed, right?
Yeah, and when you look at Florida State, one of their issues on why I've kind of held off on, like people have asked me about them, what do I think of them, blah 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 blah, and my pushback is always, well, obviously they're the biggest team in the country and they're athletic and hulking, but they don't have a point guard. They have guys that can handle the ball, but they're not a group that, when you look at the guards or the Scotty Miller or Scotty Barnes or MJ Walker or, whoever, their turnover rates are incredibly high. I mean, they turn the ball over way too much. And, Greensboro with Wes Miller, they press the hell out of you. I mean, they're really going to get up in your grill. They have guys like Miller, that are just elite steal guys, guys that are just going to pick your pocket. You look at Langley, the 6'1" sophomore. He's a guy that could pick your pocket. I mean, this is just a group that's just going to pester you and pester you and pester you. And, they have a little bit of length themselves. I mean, they're not exactly a little team either. They have some guys on the wing and with Koval down low that can do some things. It'll be interesting, but I think they could pull it off. Greensboro is a team that doesn't necessarily have to go fast. They can slow it down. And if you can break the press, you're going to have to break through a pretty damn good defense. This is the number 1 defense in the SoCo. Now, I think it's important to mention this: the Southern Conference is not a good defensive conference at all, and we really don't have much of a gauge to go off of. Now, keep in mind, Greensboro did beat Furman, who was the toughest team they played this year, probably outside of your Winthrop or Duquesne, and I think we have to kind of keep that off of how we break Greensboro down because I think Greensboro now is just way different than the Greensboro right at the beginning of the year with that COVID problem. So, yeah, I think they're an interesting team, and Miller could be a big name after the first weekend.
Absolutely. As I'm kind of thinking back here, you have these teams that go on runs, and right now we're seeing it with Georgetown. They're going on a run. Is it better to be, in your opinion, is it better to be hot at the right time or just an overall good team? I feel like these teams that get hot at the right time, they burn out if you have to win your conference tournament.
Yeah, I would much rather have a good team because, the problem that the NCAA tournament has this year and any other year, once you win your conference tournament, you have like 5 or 6 days off. In this case, Georgetown's going to have a full week off. I don't think that helps them at all. I mean, if I'm Ewing, I want to play today, or Tuesday. I don't want to wait. I don't think they got a particularly good matchup. If you know anything about Colorado, they're really going to limit you on the glass. And that's one big way. I mean, when you look at Georgetown, their offensive rebounding rate is quite high. I mean, that's kind of how they create, offense, to be honest. I mean, threes and offensive rebounds. So, a missed shot for them is really helpful because, they have guys that can just go up and grab the ball and put it back. Colorado is going to be able to match them. Colorado is a big team. Colorado is a physical team. Colorado is a good defensive team, and they're a very good defensive rebounding team. So, I think that's a pretty tough matchup for them right out of the gate. And, momentum is great, but, a week later, I don't know if you have momentum. The problem that some teams in the NCAA tournament have, like Georgetown, is they're kind of just happy to be there. And I will say, I think we have to give Patrick Ewing, he's not going to win like Coach of the Year, but I think you could make the case he should get some sort of, lauding, because, Georgetown in 2020 was one of the biggest dumpster fires in America, to be really honest with you. I mean, they lose Mac McClung.
Mm-hmm.
Yurt-Seven graduated. They lose Akinjo. He goes to Arizona. Terrell Allen graduated. And then you had basically 4 players that were kicked off the team because of off the court issues, criminal issues. This was a complete mess of a team. And he basically took 1 or 2 guys to this season, brought some kids in, and, here they are. It's really pretty incredible.
Yeah, I was going to say, losing Mac McClung obviously is huge. Seeing what he's doing with Texas Tech, it's crazy to me, because if Georgetown had him still, I don't know if they're better or worse or what, but he's an elite player, I would say, in this tournament. And obviously he's a household name because of his high school highlights, but I think he kind of got lost in the shuffle for a little bit when he transferred.
Yeah, it's really pretty incredible. Just the whole team is new. It's just a really, if I'm a young kid and if I have a kid and that's playing basketball, I don't know if there's a guy I'd rather him play for over Ewing. I think he's a treasure, I think.
Absolutely, man.
Just jumping in right here. So in our previous conversations, we've talked about how much you value the free throw percentage, because it's basically free points. Going into the tournament, are there certain teams you're looking at that stick out to you as these are the teams that hold the most value whenever it comes to free throw percentage and getting to the line?
Yeah, I think you always want to keep that in the back of your head. I mean, we just talked about Colorado. I mean, Colorado is the best free throw shooting team in America, right? When you look at them, weirdly enough, actually, they're now the second best free throw shooting team in America because of their behavior on Saturday, where they, missed 8 or 9 free throws. And that was ultimately the difference in them winning or losing in that Pac-12 tournament title game with Oregon State. There are definitely teams you want to keep an eye on. One kind of metric I do like is the free throw metric, but I also like, getting to the line. Can they make threes? I think when you're looking at tournament teams, particularly in game 1, there's going to be a lot of big dogs. So I've always said the key to a dog staying in a game is, A, do you make your free throws? B, do you turn it over? And C, can you make threes? Because threes are the great equalizer. Obviously, it's pretty much simple. It's simple math. Threes are more than twos. It's very simple. And a team that fits that metric easily is Oral Roberts. I think, the boatload of points they're getting, I'd be hard pressed to wonder how they don't cover. I thought they saw some teams that have some really good bigs. So I think they should be able to handle Ohio State with Liddell. And not even Kyle Young is pretty big. Oral Roberts is really good in the pick and roll. They're good offensively. They make shots, and they're the number 1 foul shooting team in America. So you're just kind of having that knowledge on who's who and who's going to struggle from the line, who's good from the line, blah, 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 is helpful. The worst, free throw shooting team in the field is Rutgers at 63%. Creighton's terrible. USC's a bad shooting team. And USC could come back to bite them, because I feel like if there's anyone in Gonzaga's bracket that could challenge them, it might be USC. They're always going to get that great athlete. They have the Mobley kids that are big, can handle Timmy and some of those bigs that they have. But, at the end of the day, the wrongdoing and an issue could be the free throw percentage. So you're just kind of having that knowledge. It's helpful. But there are so many different things to keep an eye on, and really just knowing where there's a mismatch, what teams are going to, like, for instance, the pressing against a team that doesn't have a point guard, stuff like that is helpful to kind of, I can just look at a bracket and kind of know what I'm going to do.
So now that gambling has become more legal throughout the country, whether it be online or in more states, and obviously it's just more in the public eye, in your opinion, is there value in taking chalk in the early rounds? You're going to, like you said, see these massive spreads. Do you see value in taking some chalk, or are you going to go more with flyers on teams?
I mean, I definitely mix it up. I think it's game to game, man. Honestly, I think you have to kind of take every game for what it is. There are games like, or Roberts, or I've talked about Grand Canyon. I think they can cover, where I'm looking to just kind of utilize a matchup that I like. But then there's just, simple matchups that, aren't really matchups. A team like Oregon, I don't think they're a good matchup for VCU. VCU needs to play a team that is kind of soft on the, in the paint and will kind of run with them and kind of play that sort of game. A team that's going to stand up and say, you got to shoot up and over us. I don't want to play. I don't want them to have to play. I mean, Oregon is going to zone them up and just say, make shots. Same with a playing game. You have a playing game right away. When I saw Mount St. Mary's was a 2-point dog against Texas Southern, I immediately knew that is a terrible matchup for Texas Southern. If you know anything about the SWAC, they can't shoot the ball in the SWAC. They just can't. I mean, Texas Southern is one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in America. In fact, I think they're the worst team in this field from 3. If I'm Mount St. Mary's, and I know Mount St. Mary's, they're going to zone them. They're going to take the air out of the ball. They got a hulking, huge front line, and they're basically going to dare Texas Southern to beat them from 3. I don't think that's a good matchup for Texas Southern. So, finding those matchups, and every game is different. Sometimes I'll lay it, sometimes I won't. I think there's terrible mismatches. I think, to be real frank with you, I think Baylor absolutely destroys Hartford. I don't – Hartford's just going to – if any team's happy to be there, it's Hartford. I mean, I think outside of Tracy Carter, they just don't have that much talent, man. I mean, Austin Williams isn't bad, but you got to remember, man, up until the America East tournament, Hartford was 11-8 in this conference. So, not ideal. They didn't play Vermont either in the regular season. So, yeah, I'm concerned for a team like Hartford. But yeah, every matchup's different.
So you brought up Grand Canyon, and I have to ask, is this because of your personal hatred against Iowa? Because if there's one guy that's been going after people, Iowa on Twitter, it's been you. Do you think that that's part of got anything to do with it? I guess I could say.
No, not at all. I if Iowa had a good matchup, I'll tell you they have a good matchup. I don't believe that Grand Canyon is a particularly good matchup for them. Listen, I don't let, and I'm going to make this 100% fucking clear. I never allow my emotion to sway my gambling bets. I don't. That's one of the reasons I really don't have teams. I have teams that I have an affinity for. I love the Sixers. I've been in love with the Sixers since I was able to see. I love the Eagles, but that will never, I bet against the Sixers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like Iowa. I don't think they're going to win much of anything. But if they had a matchup here that benefited them, if they played, let's say Iona was the matchup, or something like that, I would be more inclined to take them. I do genuinely believe Grand Canyon is a bad matchup for them. I think if I know Grand Canyon, which I do, I know that Grand Canyon has not 1, not 2, but 3 players above 6'10", and they're all really solid.
Mm-hmm.
Bitgard is a guy that played at Wichita State for 3 seasons. He played some really good players, some good caliber players. Lever is more of a finesse type of guy, but he's a good Italian big. They've got guys that come in and give fouls to Garza, and, they are going to take the air out of the ball. Bryce Drew is not stupid. He knows how to handle taking the air out of the ball and saying, we're not going to play that game. We have guards that are seniors that can handle pressure. We've got, wing players that can handle pressure. We have all that. So I'm not saying they're going to win. I'm saying they're an interesting team. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if Iowa have trouble against Grand Canyon. They're just kind of a weird matchup to me to them. So, and this is a Grand Canyon team that, obviously if you don't know anything about sports or anything about basketball, you're going to say, well, Grand Canyon, what do I care about Grand Canyon? But, this is a team that stepped up in competition. They were really solid against Nevada. They were in that game the entire time. Actually, I think at one point in the second half, they were up by double digits, So this is a team that, they played Colorado tight. They played Arizona tight. And I know those teams aren't Iowa, but, any day, any time, I think Bryce Drew will have something for Iowa. We'll see how it goes.
So we talked about Isaiah Miller being arguably one of the most underrated players. Do you think Luka Garza is one of the most overrated players in the tournament?
No, I wouldn't say he's overrated. I mean, he's obviously very good. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's the player of the year, but, I've been on record multiple times. He will not be drafted. He will not be an NBA player.
You don't even think in the second round someone will take a flyer on him? Possibly.
No, I don't. Mike
Really?
Dahm was a 2-time better player than Garza. When he was at South Dakota State, Mike Dahm was an elite player. I mean, you look at a guy like Kyle Wiltshire. I mean, like Gonzaga. Kyle Wiltshire is one of the best offensive players I've seen in a long time in the country. Look at Jimmer Fredette.
Mm-hmm.
All those guys. Just because you're good in college, it doesn't necessarily translate to the NBA. Luka Garza can't guard anybody. He's too slow. Luka Garza will make a ton of money overseas. He is Nikola Mirotic. That's what he is. He will go over to Spain or Serbia or wherever, and he'll make a ton of money. And he'll get on a roster somewhere, but it's not going to last. You know, I always use the Mike Dom comparison to Garza. They're a little bit different, but they're a similar athlete. None of the players that I mentioned, Wiltshire, I said before, Wiltshire is one of the worst defenders I've ever seen in college basketball. I mean, he was terrible. He couldn't guard a statue. I mean, it's really bad. You know, but you know, and Obi Toppin was a terrible defender as well, but Obi Toppin has incredible athletic skills. So you can kind of mask his defensive issues. Luka Garza is a nice player, and he might get a shot on a summer league roster, but no, I don't think he'll be drafted. No, I think his day in the sun is up after they get eliminated from this tournament.
So speaking of the draft, it seems like every tournament we come through, there's there's some Cinderella team that didn't really get the exposure, that has that one player that sticks out as as having the talent to go to the next level. Do you have any players in mind that you think are going to be either, a second round or even a lottery pick coming out of this tournament that you sort of see flying under the radar?
Yeah, that's always, there's always going to be players that they just create their own kind of avenue. I'll tell you a guy that I've really started to become more and more impressed with is, and I know we all remember Carson Edwards when he was at Purdue. When you look at Purdue now, I had a show I did. I've done a lot of shows today already. But somebody mentioned, Purdue doesn't have it might have been on Clubhouse, actually. Somebody mentioned that Purdue doesn't have that Carson Edwards type of player. You would be right. They don't. But they have a kid called Jaden Ivey, who I think has matured and gotten better and better as the season went on. He didn't play the first 5 games of the season or 5. He didn't play the first 5 of 6, I think. But, he has just considerably gotten better and better. And he's in big games this year played really well. I mean, he doesn't turn it over. He's a guy that's not scared to shoot the basketball. This is a guy that's really looked good. I think he's got to improve some things. He obviously needs to improve his 3-point shot, but I obviously need to think about that a little bit. I think there are guys, Corey Kispert's an interesting guy. We've kind of seen this kind of player, kind of establish himself. So whether it be Peyton Pritchard or, like a Ty Jerome or a Kyle Guy type of player, these kind of guys that aren't, or even TJ McConnell, these kind of players who, let's be frank, are white, and they create this avenue where they're just really dependable point guards. They play hard. They're not the most athletic. They're not the most gifted players in the world, but they're fundamental. They don't make stupid mistakes, and they take their team to the promised land. And if Corey Kispert can take his team to the NCAA tournament final and win the championship game, he's a guy that will turn himself into creating a lot of money for himself. So, you obviously have your
that's where you see guys like Gordon Hayward come through, where Gordon Hayward sort of willed Butler through.
Exactly. That's that's actually a really good one. Butler, they went all the way to the title game, had a shot to win it. Who knows?
Half court shot.
But he didn't even win the title, and he became a national name. So I think there's obviously room for these guys. Like a Moses Moody, who is a lottery pick, but he can kind of we always see these guys. Obi Toppin was a prime example. I mean, coming into last year, even 5-10 games into the season, Obi Toppin was good, but nobody thought he was a lottery pick. These players just get better and better. So we talk about Isaiah Miller. He's kind of small, but all these guys can carve out roles, in the NBA. We'll see if they could do it.
So you're probably one of the sharpest guys I know gambling. During this time of the year, everyone's going March Madness, March Madness, March Madness. Are you zigging at all while everyone else zags and going NIT, CIA, and looking at these other smaller tournaments? Do you check out those?
The CIA is a government agency, my
Or
friend.
what is it? I'm sorry.
CIT.
CIT. Thank you.
CEI. I know. There's too many CIA or whatever. Yeah, I hear
Yeah.
you. No, I bet all of them. I've already bet on some NIT games. I actually have a couple of teams in some of the even smaller tournaments, like Bellarmine and Bryant, that I'm big fans of. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely zig and zag. You can actually make a lot of money on those tournaments. So yeah, I think a lot of people are focused on the big boy teams, and that's fine. But I think people like me are always going to look for value wherever it is, and you know tournaments like the NIT are helpful. And I think in like even Wednesday's games, there's some good spots.
Yeah, I feel like people kind of overlook those. And was it Bryant that was a covering machine that you were giving out this year?
Yeah, Bryant was a really good team against the number for a while. So yeah, no, I love Bryant.
And was Bellarmine in a Division II school? Do I have that correct?
Bellarmine was the Division II school last year. They became a Division I school this year. They're not eligible for the NCAA tournament or anything. So, if they would have won their league, it wouldn't have mattered. They'd have forfeit. They'd have had to forfeit. There's a stupid rule in college basketball where you cannot enter the tournament for 4 years. So yeah, it's
crazy.
It's stupid, but that's just how it is.
Punish you for being. I mean, that's the NCAA though. They punish you for being good. If you're good enough to make money, they'll punish you. They'll hit you anywhere they can.
Agreed.
So my final question. We've talked a little bit about Gonzaga and Texas. Do you think that Gonzaga has the easiest path to the Final Four? Because looking at that side of the bracket, it looks like they have the only person that could, like, I think you said that that USC is the only team that could touch them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd be hard pressed to find, them losing in this bracket. I don't see much here. Like I said, they beat the top 3 seeds already by double digits. So, yeah, I would pencil them in. I think in Michigan's bracket, I think Michigan is vulnerable. Livers ain't coming back anytime soon. So they're going to have to get through 2 really good teams in LSU and Bonaventure. I actually took LSU today at 12 and 18-1 to get to the Final Four. I think they have an interesting draw, and I think they could get there. And if they get to the Elite Eight, I can hedge out in the Elite Eight game to get into the Final Four. So, I think Texas is really interesting. They're ultimately the team that I picked to get to the Final Four in that bracket. In Baylor's bracket,
I find Illinois is hard to beat. That's the team that I mean, I know they're a 1 seed, but I think Illinois. I think it winds up being Illinois Gonzaga in the national championship game.
Yeah, I think that's the toughest bracket in this tournament. I think it's really difficult to kind of figure out. I think when you look at San Diego State and Loyola and
a team like San Diego State, no one talks about when they had a 14-game win streak this season.
Yep. No, exactly. And they play that pack line defense. It's going to be incredibly difficult to handle. And they can shoot the hell out of the ball, which, people don't really talk about. You think of San Diego State as this, like, really tough, they can't score, but they defend their ass off. Mm-hmm. They're different this year. They can snipe. If I'm looking at, the other two, I think, Houston is really interesting. We're not really talking about them. They have kind of a hand ride to the Elite Eight. They're going to have to play San Diego State, I think. And then, I'll continue to hold out that I think Loyola can beat Illinois. I do. I think we have to start kind of understanding Loyola is the best defense in this field. Like
Sister Jean Magic.
Yeah. And they're an elite defensive group. Like I just love watching them defend. And, all I've heard from these Illinois fans is Krutwig's going to get destroyed by Coburn, Listen, Krutwig is a 4-year player. Okay. He was in the final. He went to the Final Four in his freshman year. You know who he beat? Some of the bigs he beat? You look at a guy like Grant Williams, who's in the NBA. 4 years he's played at the Missouri Valley level. If you know anything about Missouri Valley, one thing you can validly find everywhere is they have a lot of big corn-fed dudes that you got to play against. They're going to bang your head off. They're going to bang with you down low. Krutwig has made his bones. Okay, it's time to enter him into the family now. Stop acting like he's this this lackey, he's a good player and they defend at a really high level. Lucas Williamson is an elite defender. He can lock down Ayo Dosunmu. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you can consistently expect you're going to get 100% out of Adam Miller, Curbelo, Trent Frazier, I think you have another thing coming. They're not dependable players. And that's one of the issues I've had with Illinois. If Coburn and Dosunmu score 25 in that game, I don't know if it's enough to beat Loyola. I don't. So I really believe they can beat Illinois. They were going to have to beat a 1 seed. Don't be surprised if they do it.
My last question for you, and you kind of already touched on it. You said LSU got them at what? Was it 16-1 and 18-1?
I got 12-1 and 18-1. I just think when you look at their bracket, I think Michigan is vulnerable, right? So I think if you're getting by Bonaventure is not going to be easy. I like Bonaventure. They got a tough draw here. But I think if you could beat Bonaventure, I do think they could beat Michigan. And then you're kind of flipping against, either Colorado or Florida State or Georgetown or Greensboro. And then by that point, I could start hedging out in the Elite Eight if they play Texas or Alabama or something, and I could make a nice, healthy profit. So
I was going to say, is there any other team that's not, obviously not like a 15 seed or 16 seed, but that 7, 8, 9 range that you could see making a run? Is there anybody else in that range?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, I won't go that deep. I'll go one better, and then I'll give you another one. I think Purdue is fascinating. I really do. I think Villanova, they're another vulnerable team. Purdue and LSU have two vulnerable groups in the second round. If Villanova beats Winthrop, I think Purdue will beat Villanova. I then think that I think Purdue could give Baylor a game, and I'll tell you why. Eric Hunter is another elite defender. Brandon Newman, Jaden Ivey, Stefanovic, they're all good defenders. I think they can lock down Teague and Mitchell. I don't know if they'll completely shut them down, but they can do it. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think Baylor has an answer for not only Williams, but this Zach Edey kid has turned into quite a player. 7'4". He's a tough player to deal with. They're fascinating as well, Purdue. Down another team to keep an eye on. I'll throw out San Diego State. I think they're pretty interesting. I have them at 65-1 to win the whole thing. I think they have a pretty decent draw as well. I think, they can beat West Virginia. And then at that point, I think they could beat Houston, So I think they all have decent shots here. A fascinating game that we didn't really touch on is, Drake Wichita, right? Drake gets Hemphill back, and, Wichita has kind of an interesting kind of pedigree. Can they beat USC? Maybe they could throw a wrench in. Kansas is without Jalen Wilson. They might be without McCormick. So, that's
Wichita is always making noise in the tournament.
What you said, Wichita does?
Yeah, Wichita always makes noise.
Well, they had that team that was undefeated with Clanton Early and Ron Baker and Van Vliet. So,
Ron Baker.
They've slowly created a wagon out in that area of the world. So, I watch out for Wichita. They've really played for that coach Isaac Brown, who's done a great job.
So my final question is, I don't know. I'm not the most educated in men's college basketball, but I always feel like the most interesting matchups are the 5-12 and the 7-10 matchups, because I always feel like there's some magic there in the 5-12 and the 7-10 matchups. And any of those four, do you see any that you like where the underdog comes out on top?
Well, I think UCSB could be Creighton. UCSB is really good on both sides of the ball. They're a group that, under Joe Pasternak has never been to the NCAA tournament. They've been close, but they've never gotten over the hump until now. This is a conference, the Big West, that has beaten teams. UC Irvine a couple of years ago beat Kansas State in the first round of the NCAA tournament as a 13 seed. So it's definitely something that could happen. Barbara on both sides of the ball is really good. They don't turn it over. They get to the line. They make their free throws, 76% from the line. They take a lot of good shots too. Their assist to field goals made, a lot of good ball movement. They're just a fun offense to watch. And I think defensively they can handle Creighton. Creighton's been disappointing. They've been kind of in and out of consistency. They're interesting. Obviously Villanova, they're going to have their hands full with Winthrop. I think Villanova just has some matchup advantages with Robinson Earl and Samuels that I think they can exploit. I don't think that one will happen. Oregon State ain't beating Tennessee. And I think Georgetown, while a good 12 seed, Colorado's just not, to me, a great matchup to them. So I think there's one probably. As far as 10-7 games, I don't think I think Rutgers will beat Clemson. I don't think Maryland will beat UConn. Absolutely not.
No, not. I think UConn's a very solid team.
I think VCU is a real bad matchup against Oregon. Oregon is healthy now. Oregon, if there's a team in that Gonzaga bracket, Oregon is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that. And then, Virginia Tech. I saw Virginia Tech on Twitter today with this ridiculous video talking about how great they are because they made the end. Do you guys see that video?
I did not.
I did not.
I saw
I'm telling you,
Coach
after
K
after
put a
the
video
show's
out.
over, you got to go watch it. It's from their Twitter account. It has some Barstool stuff, and it's really cringy. But yeah, I think that game's kind of the most boring game in the card. So yeah, I think there's some 5-12s that are intriguing and 7-12, 7-10s, but there'll be some upsets. And Eastern Washington could upset Kansas. I think Iowa's kind of interesting, with the Grand Canyon matchup. So yeah, there's some good ones out there.
Awesome. Man. Well, I'm tapped out on questions. Where can the people find you online, man?
Yeah, you can follow me at Jeff Nadu on Twitter, JFFNADU. I'm doing a show every day at 9 a.m. on a channel called Pickswise on YouTube, PICKSWISE. It's a company out of the UK. They're really branching into American sports, and they brought me and my partner, Donnie Wrightshead, on to do college basketball throughout the month of March. That may turn into some other stuff as well. So, check me out there. I'm working on some other things as well to kind of, continue my next steps in life. And, I know after the tournament, I've kind of made it a point to say that I'm going to take some time away from Twitter and this whole racket and, go out and I think I'm going to move finally and, just kind of take some time and, bet baseball and have a good summer and, come back fresh for football. And who knows where life will take me. I had a dream the other night that I went back to Barstool, weirdly enough. Just like I hit Dave up and I'm like, you know what? It was weird. Like I made a mistake. Who the hell knows where life takes you,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm just living in the moment.
For sure, man. It's all we can do, especially if there's one thing we learned last year. Gotta
Yep.
live in the moment, right?
You definitely do, for sure about that.
Awesome,
But-
man. Well, it's always a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you all the luck in the world. Enjoy your time off after the tournament.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to that. Thanks always for having me, and yeah, I'm sure we'll talk again soon. You guys are real cool with me, so
Appreciate it. Thanks again so much, man.
all right, guys,
Man,
take
it
it easy.
easy.